Welcome to the first episode of the Augmented Professional, a webinar proudly hosted by Raiana that focuses on the implementation of regulatory AI tools in organizations. I'm joined today by Dina Lakayan. Dina is not just one of the co-founders of Raiana, but she's also the CEO and founder of Create. And I think that Dina has more experience than probably anyone in the world implementing AI in regulatory processes. You've done this since what, 2022?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably longer than anyone as well. Well, before we get going and we asked Dina for her expertise, for the last 2 weeks we ran a number of polls on LinkedIn where we asked you how you see the integration of AI tools in quality management and the validation of tools. So the first question we asked was, do you need a procedure in your QMS to govern the use of AI tools in regulatory? And as you can see, the answers are mostly in the category where people say yes. So yes, everybody agrees that the AI tools need to be embedded in the QMS as we are used to in medical devices. We want to be in control. Now, 80% of respondents said, yeah, I know what to do. I'm going to write this procedure, no problem. So these people can use this webinar to basically check their homework. But there's also 20%, and the 20% said, yeah, I think I need a procedure, but I don't know what to do. So hopefully after you hear Dina, you do know what to do. The second question is, what is your view on validating AI tools in regulatory? They're a little bit different, as we shall see also later on. There are several options. One of them was, apart from not using AI, is not to validate, right? To see it as, oh, it's just a piece of software. But that's not how we're wired in quality and regulatory, are we? You clearly see that the people gravitated towards, yes, we should validate. And almost everyone said we should allow any AI use, but with human review. And a very small minority, 10%, said, look, we only are going to validate a few use cases for AI and then let it do its thing. Then finally, we looked at roles. And we asked you which professionals, which departments do you think should have access to AI for regulatory affairs? Maybe it's the bias of the Raiana AI LinkedIn page, but everyone says this is a tool for regulatory people. And there were two ways to look at that. First is you say you give it to the experts, the senior people, to make them even better, to make them use their time even more efficiently. But there's also a 20% or 25% a group of people who said, well, let's give it to the more junior people so that they can get on the learning curve faster. So that's an interesting split. And I think this sets us up very well for your talk, Dina. Would you please share your thoughts about how you see the integration of regulatory AI tools in a QMS?
When we are talking about AI tools as part of this webinar, we are talking about general purpose AIs for supportive use. And we are not talking about medical device AI, and we are not also talking about high-risk AI system as defined under the EU AI Act. These are general purpose AI. They need to comply with the AI Act, but they are not high-risk systems. Medical device manufacturers are really good at is to define what's the purpose of their tool. I think for AI tool, this is one of the key points. They need to define why they're using this AI, specific AI in the medical device manufacturing, for which processes they're using. One may say that we need to define the intended purpose of the AI. And for example, in case of Raiana, it is a supportive tool. It can be used for information collection, drafting, summarizing, data structuring, or even initial assessment. The key is here that accountability remains with the human. So they are accountable for strategic judgment, the contextual understanding, final approval.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that we're not talking about a high-risk AI system here. We're not talking about a medical device even, but it's helpful to take some of those concepts, those familiar concepts, and apply them to the introduction of the AI tooling because they will be helpful.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And
maybe one other thing is that we tend to be biased towards Raiana, But I think what we're discussing here could apply to any AI
That's
tool
correct.
that you would use in your regulatory workflow, right?
So for any AI tool, the workflow should be like what I call as sandwich workflow. So you have an AI tool, human input comes in. It can be a form of prompt or knowledge or information that you give with specific boundaries that you define, and then the AI process it. So it gives you an output, and that output has to be always validated by humans. Human is in control, human is accountable.
And would you say that the human is interacting with the AI and the sandwich workflow, as you called it? Is then the intermediate result, is that something that you would want to necessarily track or have a special status for?
As accountability lies with human at the end, the final approved versions are the documents that we are looking at, and has to be traced the same way as you're always doing the traceability for your document management system.
Yeah, so if you see the AI as a collaborator, like a person, a virtual person, they would provide drafts and emails and thoughts and things on a whiteboard. You can keep them, but you don't have to, because you always have the validated, reviewed copy of the information at the end.
Exactly.
Right.
Where I put the AI in my quality system, I would say every manufacturer has to, after they define the purpose of the AI, and they need to govern the use of AI by, for example, a global AI policy. In this global AI policy, you have to define what you can do, what you cannot do with them, and what is also the scope of the AI has to be completely defined, and also human oversight. This is a policy separate one, but you have also existing QMS processes like the computerized system validation. That is something that every manufacturer within the scope of ISO 13485 have this process. You can assess the risk of the use of AI as part of this process, or you can have separate use, but based on that you can see, based on the scope of the use of the AI, you can see what are the risks. Is it the security? Is it the data? So as you said, use of the familiar concepts that we know from EU AI, what is the data quality, and also you check the aspects of security. You define a specific working structure or procedure for the security of the use of AI, and at the end, based on the competences that you have in your organization, you can define what should be the training and what type of access should they have it. Say, okay, I use AI only for my regulatory work. MDR requires that the manufacturer to have a regulatory strategy. And in that strategy, you can say, okay, we use AI for these purposes. But the judgment, the final approval is with human oversight and never with AI only.
So you're saying that the Article 10.9, that's like optionally you could say we're using AI tools. It's just nice to be transparent like that. It's not a required, but it's nice. But then you also mentioned the training of the people, where at least as far as I know, there is actually a legal requirement from the EU AI Act. I mean, assuming that our viewers are in the European Union in this case, is that, as far as I understand it, the deployer, so in this case the employer, has to make sure that the people using AI know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, that is Article 4 of AI, AI literacy. And the employers, the users of AI need to be trained on the use of AI and know the boundaries of AI. So we talk about processes right now, but AI policy, I think, is most practical way to implement the use of AI within your quality management system. Doesn't matter what kind of AI. Define the purpose, have the approved users, prohibited users, and require control, human verification, checking, data privacy. Examples of approved use, for example, in case of Raiana, would be drafting, summarizing, structuring, analyzing, or even the quality, improve the quality of your content.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about structuring, I think this is where you can take advantage of that great capability of AI to combine things, right? So we have a mutual friend, he always talks about the regulatory lasagna, how the MDR or IVDR and the EU AI Act overlap, how the battery regulation comes in and the Data Act has something to do with it, and the Product Liability Directive. And tying all that together is a task for AI. So you say that is an often used use case. But then to be able to do the human in the loop, that has to be done in a verifiable way, correct?
Correct. I mentioned about risk-based approach as well to use AI tools. I think as part of your policy, you also have to define who is the process owner of this AI tool. So who owns the process for the use of AI in your environment. And that owner is accountable for the content of the, or even if it's a third-party AI, they can just do supplier check. So as I said, what's the quality of the data? The people or who train the data, do they have enough competences? That's the things. Then you have IT validation. So IT validation is not the software validation. That's completely different. We come back to that. But IT validation in this case is to check the qualification, the security, and also the level of access within the organization. And then obviously, as we mentioned, the final approver has to take the full responsibility and own the risk. If I may have a checklist even for the manufacturer here, I would say it's the supplier qualification, training, data transparency, privacy, access control, data protection checks. These are the things that you need to check and have in mind.
Yeah, because you say risk-based. So when you look at the risk, this is not a onboard flight computer that if this fails, then the plane comes out of the sky. Yeah. This is a support tool for a professional with a human in the loop. So the risk of something going wrong is relatively low. But you're pointing out that if it comes to the data privacy, the confidential information, that is very important because the AI will do something with that. So you have to make sure in this case that that is covered, and you do that with a data privacy check on the IT side.
Yeah, that's right. To make it easier, we can define a roadmap for having your AI as part of your quality management system. So you have to define your policy, create your scope and purpose, and set the boundaries, assess the risk as you mentioned. We have to qualify the tools, so you have supply assessment, IT validation as we mentioned as well, and train your team. Data literacy is really important and also is required by law. The final step I would say is monitoring the use of AI. You also have to check if the AI is giving what you expect, and it's continuously meeting your expectation. It's like post-market surveillance somehow. Yeah. So as you do with any medical device, it's not a medical device, but as you do with the mindset of medical device, says I would say you have to monitor continuously if the AI is actually it's meeting your expectation.
Yeah, you're drawing another couple of parallels, right? So you can say the qualification of the tool is like a PRRC. Yeah. Does this person, in this case this software, have the right experience, so to speak, to be able to perform that role? And then on what you call post-market surveillance, it's not just about the tool perhaps, but also with the training that the people were given, are they getting the right results? If not, maybe the tool needs to change or the training needs to change, right? So those are the things that you can then do a plan, do, check, act cycle on.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's how you have to look at AI. We know that there are known risks with the AIs. Can you tell us more about it? One of them, as everybody talks about, is hallucinations. What else is there? So we need to also, as a medical device manufacturer, we need to consider those risks.
Yeah, well, hallucination, I think, is the best known, or at least the most understandable one, right? It's the famous example of ChatGPT making up case law in a court case, and the lawyer gets in big trouble because he didn't do his human validation. But there are others like bias, or there could be something in the data. We are biased talking about Raiana all the time. Mm-hmm. A model might have bias because it is trained on a certain data set, and then that data can also be outdated because these models are trained periodically. It's a very resource-intensive operation. You cannot do it in real time. So a model might have a data cutoff that is 9th of January 2026, and then something is published on the 10th. It's not in there yet. So those are like the technological limitations that you have to keep in mind. And as technology progresses, that's will get less. Hallucinations, as an example, the first ChatGPT that was released to us as the public had a hallucination rate of something like 10%. That has already been reduced just by that technology and not by the things that we're doing as a company or others are doing on top of that model, already been reduced to 0.5%, so factor of 20. So technology goes on and actually reduces these technological limitations, which is great.
Yeah.
The one risk, and it's the same with self-driving cars, with using Google Maps in your car, is that if you check the output as you should, you were very clear. You check it once, it's good. You check it twice, it's good. You check it 17 times, it's always good. Are you the 501st time that you're going to have to check it, are you going to check as thoroughly as you should, or as you did the first time at least? Probably not, right? So that might lead to over-reliance. And this is not, again, not specific to AI software. It's, again, with the example of the junior intern that gets everything right, and at some point you just sign off their document because they were right always. And that's a problem. It has nothing to do with technology. It's human nature. And it will happen. So I think it is good in the processes to have a mitigation for that risk, that at some point we will take our eyes off the road and let the car drive, because it's always been driving well. And why would it drive off the cliff this time? But the impact could be large. So we need to build in some sort of post-market monitoring, as you were saying, to make sure that we don't just go blindly and forget to check. Because there is a risk there. It's small risk, but because it's so small, it can go undetected and it can be a problem.
So we know that the medical device manufacturers are familiar with continuous monitoring. So it's like to check your supplier is still up to date, they have the right information, they have the right competences, and also to monitor the output, obviously, from your own side. Beside the human in the loop mitigation for each result, so that is continuous as well. I think you should also have to set time points for sampling and reassess, and if there is something wrong, you have to escalate to your third party within the organization, where if you are using the AI or developing AI in-house. And this continuous monitoring helps you to improve or flag problems all the time. One of the questions that we get a lot is how do we validate our AI tools? I would say for the scope of this webinar, validation at the customer, at the client end. How do they validate the AI tool?
Yeah, that is a key point, and it's only a question because it's a bit different, right? So what we're used to is validating software packages we buy from a vendor, and they are deterministic. You put inputs in 2 and a plus sign and a 2, and out comes 4. Microsoft Excel, every time. With an AI system, a generative AI system, the output will be different. That's just how these systems work. There's a certain, I'm not going to go into boring details, there's a certain probability in there. So if you ask a device classification of endoscope, then it will come out with the same reasoning through the rules of Annex 8 in the MDR. It will come up with the same answer, but the words will not be the same. The paragraph headers will not be the same. It might ad-lib somewhere. It might put an, oh, by the way, if there's software attached with AI, you might want to check AI Act. It might put that in, but it might put it at the top, but put it at the bottom. So if you're going to do validation, like I want this gold standard result every time, your validation is going to fail. So what you need to look for is not verbatim outputs every time, but you need to assess if the method is consistent, right? You're looking for consistency of the form and not the bits and bytes. So that's a bit of a different way of looking at it. It is very similar to if you would have I mentioned Google Maps already. You're driving from A to B. So what you're looking for is the outcome. Do I get to B? Do I go by the same road every time? Maybe not.
Yeah.
That depends. Now we're talking today about regulatory affairs, and the answers are textual usually at the moment, right? You get a document out, you get a classification or an answer to your question, or something in the lasagna that it figured out for you. So it's textual, you can compare letters and words, but all the other software vendors, and I'm going to say all the other software vendors in the world, are putting AI in their software as well, if only for competitive reasons. So now the purely deterministic manufacturing system that is just churning out your products, at some point will probably have this great feature to help you improve yield. It will measure something and take a conclusion and make an adaptation. AI. And it will stop being so deterministic. So getting used to this way of validating now with your regulatory tool, and you said correctly, and actually our people online said that was their preference as well, let QA/RA be the process owner. Great, bring that in now, because very soon you will be asked to think about the validation of production systems, of R&D systems, and marketing systems that have some sort of AI in them.
Yeah.
So this, I don't want to call it fuzzy because that makes it sound like witchcraft or something.
It's just changing the mentality.
Changing the mentality from validating a very simple machine, like a printing press, you put original in and copies come out, to a more elaborate thing where you have an input and something richer comes out, but something harder to define.
Yeah.
So it's the consistency you're looking for. Does it give me, functionally speaking, the right output? And that you can validate.
So you have a predicted outcome, and you also can check that with in case of regulatory, with regulatory sources, and also human intelligence, and you can check it's always correct.
Yeah.
And that's the way you're mentioning to validate. It's you also mentioned previously to me, it feels like you're checking the employees, right? So evaluation of your employees.
It's a kind of a performance review that you're doing. And with employees, you don't say, you're not writing your emails the same every day, but you respond to the customer and the customer is happy, right? That's your outcome measure.
Yeah.
So look for outcome measures, not for technical measures. So maybe the philosophical note to maybe stop our presentation is that machines are becoming more human. So we need to treat them as we treat humans. Yeah. We don't have to pat them on the back and say thank you. That is not required. But we do have to look at what they deliver in a different way than we used to.
Yeah, and of course the accountability always remains with human. Capability is augmented.
Definitely.
And we need to treat our AI tools like our best interns. Trust them, but always verify.
Verify.
Thank you, Marty.
No, thank you, Dina, for sharing this experience. And I know you've been doing this since day one when people said AI, and now I think a lot of people can benefit from these learnings. But let's also open it up to questions. So I'm saying this now in a recording, obviously. You probably got that by now. So we are now going to switch over to ourselves live, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you for now.